Coach, we're back one more time.
Okay.
All right.
Let's hear this one.
So let's do a real quick review. Maybe let the viewer know what are we doing here for one, sure. And what were the other two models, the other two videos that they might want to check out.
All right. So the first one was Tuckman's model. It was the linear model of how teams actually progress through a series of stages, and then the second one was more of a life cycle process, absolutely. Kind of like a birth through growth through death.
Sure.
And so this one now is what? This looks kind of interesting. I don't know what this one is.
It is an interesting one. All so right. You had mentioned that the initial one was a linear model.
Yes.
The second one was a life cycle model.
Yes.
So here we have a visual of a pendulum. And this is an additional way to describe the group development process, how the team comes together,
okay.
and how they become hopefully a cohesive unit.
All right.
So very similar to the other models is that we have some kind of an orientation. We have a starting point.
Okay.
So we have a natural starting point in the group development process, and over time, this pendulum is going to swing back and forth. And with momentum, we're always going to be swinging back and forth between two ends of our spectrum. We're going to have some sort of differentiation or team conflict that the group is going to be going through.
All right.
And so we looked at some examples of that. So as the team is coming together, not everybody is going to be a starter. You're going to have other roles on the team.
Sure.
And so coming through that conflict of figuring out who is in what role, certainly is going to have to be worked through.
Okay.
And from that differentiation, what this model would suggest is that there's a great deal of momentum that takes us from differentiation and conflict into resolution and cohesion.
All right.
And so very similar to Tuckman's model of that storming stage, where it's a very natural and normal part of that process,
sure.
that as the team goes through that conflict and as they come to resolution, that hopefully the outcome there is that the team is a bit closer. That they enjoy being around one another, and
sure.
that they're more cohesive in their drive to accomplish the team goals.
So, take me through the part in terms of conflict here. Would this also involve maybe conflict from between the coaches and the players?
Absolutely, absolutely. So for example, on many teams where you have a head coach and you have assistant coaches, sure. Oftentimes the assistant coaches, much like the players, have different roles.
Fair enough.
And so a lot of times the coaches are trying to figure out, hey, what is my role on this team? So for example, I know many teams where the head coach is considered the bad cop, and the assistant coaches are the good cops. So in that case, the assistant coach is the one that comes up and puts his arm around the players. Hey, hang in there.
Sure.
And the head coach is the disciplinarian.
Yep.
So in some respects, what you might see with the good cop, bad cop is that the players themselves kind of rally against the head coach.
Sure.
Or if it's a particular assistant coach that they don't like in that case. So most certainly the coaches can have specific roles.
So kind of like initially in Miracle, where they seem to be revolting against Herb Brooks' character, or remember the Titans with Coach Boone, like that. Some of the players are like, "Why are you so hard on me?" Those type of things.
Absolutely. So in both of those examples, here you had great examples of the coaches who were more like managers of sorts,
sure.
instead of being that kind of transformational leader where they're really developing those relationships with the players. But you see over the course of that movie, as the players work and the coaches work through that conflict, you see them coming to that resolution, and the players themselves come to greatly, appreciate and love their coaches.
Okay.
Whereas first they saw them as these hard-nosed disciplinarians
sure.
that didn't genuinely care about them, but over time I saw this different side of the coaches as they worked through that.
I like that.
So what we see is that in this particular model, one of the advantages that we have is that because it is a pendulum, and much like pendulum, they're constantly in flux. We're constantly swinging back and forth. Okay. So during this cycle, if you will, of the team development from beginning to end, we could cycle back and forth. This pendulum could go back and forth between resolution and conflict as many times as it needs. For those teams that they're together for a season. If we look at maybe a high school team. Okay. That season might be 3 or 4 months long. They might cycle in and out of this resolution and this conflict numerous times over just a few months.
Sure.
But then we look at other teams that they're together for a year, or a incoming class of freshmen into a college or university that might be together for 3 or 4 years. During that group process, they can be cycling back and forth, an unlimited number of times.
Nice.
But then we also see in this process that we do have a beginning and then we do have a natural ending to this process. So as the team has worked their way out of this momentum, that the pendulum is eventually going to swing back to its original starting position, and that's where the team is going to naturally have its end point, its termination.
Okay.
So just to kind of review what we've done here in these videos, we looked at the process of group development, how groups come together and how that can build cohesion within a team. And we looked at 3 particular models. We looked at a linear model, we looked at a life cycle model, and then here today we just finished up with a pendular model of group development.
So as you said before at the end of the last video, the life cycle video, it doesn't mean that one's better than the other or one's right or wrong. It's just other ways of kind of understanding how groups and teams kind of form and kind of go through their process of developing and becoming.
Absolutely. Any one of those models that we look at is going to have particular advantages and some disadvantages. I think for particular coaches, it's much like wearing a pair of glasses. It all frames how you see the world. It frames how you see your team. So maybe as a coach, I kind of take more towards this pendular model. So from that particular point of view, that's going to resonate with me, where I see that the team is naturally going to go through this conflict and this resolution multiple times throughout the season. And maybe if I am that particular coach, as the team has that conflict, I don't jump in and save them.
Fair enough.
That I let them work through that process and they come to that resolution. Maybe there's certainly times where they do need a hand. But if I look at it from that perspective of this pendular model, then I might not be jumping in there every time that they need saved, if you will.
Sure, absolutely, that's great.
So all of those models have some real strengths and some assets to them, and then other components of the model are going to maybe have some disadvantages. So really encourage coaches and athletes that are kind of interested in this group development process. Choose the one that works best for you, and understand what maybe some of the other models, how they can help you become a better coach, and how they can help your teams develop more adequately and achieve their goals.
Nice. That's great.
Yes. Well, very good job. Good review of those 3 models, buddy.
Yes, Coach. Thanks.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.